Hey, everyone. What's up? It's Kiki Lovelace. My pronouns are she and they. I am a longtime small business owner. I've created 3 companies. I am actually working on a 4th one. Not even ready to tell you all about that yet, but I know, Heather. But I'm also a success and leadership mentor for my multi-6 plus figure small business owners. And I work with lots of different folks in different industries. But of course, I always work with wellness business owners because I am one myself, coaching people, marketing people, folks in the entertainment industry, product development, and education. And today I have asked one of my favorite clients and favorite humans in the world, Heather Fisher, to come on and tell you a little bit about her journey. Heather, would you please introduce yourself to the good people that are watching tonight?
Sure. So I'm a brick and mortar Pilates studio owner, and I've owned my business since 2016. I've been teaching for longer, but just sort of like fell into business ownership. I say fell into, but like the day I started teacher training, I was like, I'm going to own a Pilates studio. So I think the entrepreneurship is like totally in my DNA, and leadership and just being a business owner seems to combine a lot of the things that I love to do. So, yeah, that's what I'm
Awesome.
working on right now is just building my business. And Kiki's been a great help for the past 4. Well, I guess it'll be 4 years this
Yeah,
fall.
3.5 years. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I want you all to know that, when Heather came to me, it was actually in the fall of 2020. I remember it so distinctly just because that was such a distinct year. Um, And actually now I'm having a memory, Heather, of you being like one of the fastest action takers, of course, that I've ever worked with. Like I remember like on our discovery call, we had identified like the first step and like within the week, yes, we had scheduled your first session, but you were already in action about the thing that we had talked about. Do you remember that?
yes, yeah. And I feel like I am usually like that. Like, I'm pretty quick when it comes to like getting things done. And so it's funny, like what we've kind of been talking about lately about
You know,
planting seeds and letting them germinate and like realizing it's a marathon, not a sprint and a slow game. Cause
right.
I think that's been like a big shift is like learning when to take fast action and
Right.
when to like let things percolate. So
Well,
it's
okay.
very
So we
interesting.
gotta pause you there because that's like actually so good for I think everyone watching to understand. So, first of all, I want you all to know that Heather has had the most amazing results. Like back in 2020, she was actually doing really relatively well compared to a lot of my other pandemic brick and mortar business owners. I think that year Heather grossed like 177K in cash sales, which we were all very happy with, right? And then last year, 2023, she did over 330K in sales. And this past month, February of 2024, she had her biggest month ever of over $48,000 in sales. And I want you all to know that Heather is on the verge of another big and very significant and sustainable increase. Heather, do you want to tell them what you are literally currently building right now?
Yes, so we are 3 weeks away from opening a brand new studio location. We're moving to a new space. We're not like opening a second location, so it's a move, but it's a big new space that we built out from the ground up. So working on that right now, and it's been honestly something I've been dreaming of since I took over the business. Uh, it'll be 8 years in the fall. So having a new space and a new space that I could make my own because I took over the business from a previous owner has been like such a huge thing that I've been working behind the scenes forever to feel like it's actually like finally coming into fruition and like physically being able to start putting things into place just this past week has been like very crazy, very cool.
Yeah, and I love that this expansion for you has really come out of a place of being so sold out in your current business. Like you're out of space, you're out of room. You literally can't even increase that much more volume, see that much more volume of humans in this space that, the former owner was in for years before even you were in. So I
Hmm.
love that you're expanding from that place of like already having expanded. That's so cool. That's such an amazing
Yeah,
place. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely grew to the point where we were like, I feel like our we're just like pushing up against the walls of our current space. Like we're like, "Ugh."
Right, right, right.
So it'll be cool that whole like if you build it, they will come thing. Like we're taking the leap to move into this huge new space. Like I know it'll just give us so much more flexibility and space to grow.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And so, as we were talking about, we were having like a moment on one of our calls like a week or two ago when you had realized and showed me like the sales report, which I love that my clients do this. They often like screenshot their sales report, like, holy shit, Kiki, look what just happened. And so you had screenshotted this sales report or the whatever the tally was for the month of February. And we were on a call talking about like, wow, what growth you have experienced to have had, you know, to have made in 1 month what you used to make in a quarter, right? But you did in 1 month. It's just such a remarkable accomplishment. And you said something that I thought was so very interesting, which I'd love for you to tell us all about today, which is that actually you started planting seeds for this kind of explosive yet very sustainable financial growth that you're experiencing now. You started planting these seeds like 2 years ago. And so can you tell everybody like what seeds are you talking about? Like what are the seeds that you planted then that you feel like has helped you achieve these incredible milestones now?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to be honest, at the time we shut down for COVID, like I was before that point very burnt out in my business because
Mm,
I had been running it as the Heather Show for a couple years. You know, I was a new business owner when I took it over. I was the kind of the primary teacher, so I didn't realize at the time I was like stepping into another full time job when I was already the person who was sustaining the business by providing the services primarily. So, that just wasn't going to work for too much longer. And then COVID happened. Um, and it gave me the chance to kind of like go back and really refine a lot of our offerings, do a little hiring, do a little building out of my team. I hired a manager and started training her, which was huge. And also just kind of thinking about like, well, what do I want the client journey to be like from point A, someone like finding us on the internet or hearing about us from a friend, that first point of initial contact to like them becoming a happy, loyal member
mm,
that's like fully in the mix at the studio and knows all the teachers and loves everybody and it's like part of their life. So it was kind of like putting myself in the client's shoes and being like, okay, how would I want my hand to be held through this process? And so for that, I came up with some new front door offers that were really like customized. And then I also incorporated a ton of automations to make it like streamlined for myself and my staff to just like kind of put people through this funnel over and over again and kept tweaking it and had to really train my staff on things like sales, like how to educate the client, how to show up as the expert so that, they're sort of proving to the client that hey, I have the solution to your problem
mm,
and this is why you're here and here's how I'm going to help you and here's the offers that we have that are exactly right for why you came in the door. So I realized that like I had to really do a lot of work on training my staff how to do sales, setting up like smooth sales processes and back end procedures, and then just refining like our website and automations and things like that to make that as like smooth as it could be without taking out the personal touch because I still
mm.
wanted to like have it be a high touch experience for people. So riding that line between, making it smooth and replicatable, if that's a word for my staff and myself, but also not just being like, yeah, just sign up for a free class and then we'll send you a bazillion emails in a sequence that have nothing to do with you, because
Right.
I've been in that position and I didn't think that that felt super great either as a client. So
Yeah, I mean like it's interesting. A lot of what you're talking about is like higher level strategy pieces. We were talking this morning when we were chatting about how one of your geniuses, you're just very creative and you're an innovator. You come up with like these new ideas for your front door offers or for your different offers. And I'm always thinking, wow, I should do what Heather does. Like you always have the best ideas. And what I want to name is that I think a lot of people who want to experience the financial growth that you have experienced, it's almost like they skip steps. Like they try to jump from where they are to that sort of energy of like the creatics with the new offers and putting something out every 2 seconds and all that. And like even jumping towards like getting everything automated, like what you just described. But what I really want to pull out for people, which was so interesting for me to watch you do, is that the order of things for you was, oh my God, Kiki, I'm burned out. Let's work on the pricing menu, which like we did instantly. But then, like, pretty quickly, we started addressing the burnout. And the way to address the burnout was to start to delegate, learn some leadership skills, develop your team. And as you just so nicely described, like you kind of stepped into the energy of mentor. How do I teach these people the energetics and the mechanics of making a sale, or of leading an amazing session that somebody wants to come back to, client retention, etc. And so what I saw you have during that time, as you started stepping back from like your 50-hour work week, remember those days? Like you started stepping back from that and building your team. What I saw happen was like you entered into the great nap zone. Like it was like there was this moment of where things actually looked like nothing was happening. Do you remember that? You would like come to our
Mhm.
coaching calls and be like, I have no questions. Like there's nothing. I'm like, there's nothing I want to know. I don't even really want to know anything. Like I just want to take a nap, or like go to the pool with my family, Remember that?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that was so weird for me, just being someone who's always got, like, a bazillion things on the to-do list and kind of thriving in that overscheduled place
Yeah,
to go through that, and, like, it's sort of counterintuitive, but, like, I really needed a mentor in that moment because I needed someone to tell me that it was okay to take a nap, and
totally.
I also, like, realizing that business growth has those ebbs and flows, and things were still growing at that time, but it was like, you don't have to input like 500% to eke out like a 5% return, which is kind of like what I had just assumed owning a business and growing it would be. Um, so to feel that kind of flip and be like, "Oh, I can just sort of rest in what it's doing, and it's steadily growing at a really sustainable pace, and none of my teachers are going crazy," you know?
Right, right.
Nobody is like, my clients aren't like, "What the heck is happening?" Everything's changing, it's so it just felt really steady,
Yeah,
and
it was like
so
quiet, it was steady, I noticed, and it kind of to me you embodied in this really beautiful way like the nature of creativity. Like the thing about creativity is there's these moments, like if you think of the seasons, like there's a moment of winter. The winter is where things are happening underground, but it's actually very quiet. It's a moment of rest, it's a moment of lots of sleeping and dreaming, and like I saw you embodying that, for a while, for months really, and kind of being freaked out about it just because it was so unnerving, like you said. But what I really want to name is like because you had set up, you had kind of come out of the burnout, set up some team and some support. What I saw happen next, and tell me if this rings true for you, is like this burst of creativity came through. It was like finally you were well rested enough and you weren't so like pulled apart every day by your to-do list that you had all this life force to put into creation, creating your team, creating your offers, creating your sales process, like all those things. I mean, would you say that's true to your experience?
mhm, yeah, and being, like, discerning too, because I think when you're in that, like, hustle place, it's almost like you get if you're like you and I think you get so many ideas, and you don't really, like, have the presence to decide what you should actually take action on,
Right.
because it's like, "Oh, I'm getting this good idea, I can tell it's a good idea, like, I should implement this tomorrow," and then, "Oh, it didn't do anything, I'm gonna go on to the next thing," and I don't know, that's just not I remember feeling like, "Should I be doing that? Should I be that?" Because that's kind of the model of success that I've seen,
Right.
and then I'm like, "I just don't want that, so I'm not gonna do that," even if it means it takes me 3 years to do what maybe I could do in 1 year or something, but I have sanity and I have more balance, and, like, everybody else around me feels more, like things are just more centered and smooth. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there's one more thing I'm just remembering as you're describing that time is like part of what paved the way, I believe, was your willingness in that moment, like you said, the discernment to say no to what's not aligned for you. Like, I actually remember you saying, aren't I supposed to be creating some sort of personal brand right now? Like, am I supposed to create a coaching brand? This is back in like,
Yes.
2020, 2021. I think it was 2021, where coaching
Mhm.
was like a big, all of a sudden, like this big thing, especially amongst people in our wellness and health and, transformation industries. And I just remember you deciding consciously, no, I am not going to put my life force into that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was so powerful.
Yeah, well, and I even looked at this space that we're moving into now in the summer of 2022 for the first time. I was kinda, like, putting my feelers out, going to look at spaces, and I found this space, I really loved it, there's something about it that just seemed right, um, but I was like, "I don't know, it's just not the time." Like, as excited as I am about this space, I just I felt my intuition was really like, "You can move in a year,
Mm,
and that'll be fine." And then you can give yourself a really long runway to, like, do all those other things you kinda wanna get done that will really position you well to move into a bigger space versus trying to scramble and do it all and jump on it because maybe the space won't be available in 3 months or 6 months, you know?
mhm.
And luckily, it was available when I reached back out a year later, so
Right. Totally. So one last question for you today. So I know when you first came into my world, like you were a self-described hesitant delegator. Do you remember these days? Hesitant delegator. Like you were like, am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to ask them to do this? Is this too much? Like we had a lot of conversations about that early on and really there was a focus on like learning leadership skills, like learning the technique, tactic, and communication skills of a leader. And so I'm just curious now that you've been doing this work for, almost 4 years, how would you describe yourself as a leader?
that is a good question. I would say, like well, my manager just told me today, like, "You're so people first." Like,
Mm,
you get things done and you've got your to-do list and your goals and you're very driven, but, like, you still put the people first, and I was like, "Oh," it was nice to have her recognize that to me because it is, like, I'm always thinking of, like, what's the win for me, for the business, for the clients, and for my teachers, and I try to strike the balance of all those things, which is hard. It's not always the easiest way to make decisions. Um, I've gotten stronger in like prioritizing myself more in that equation because I hold all the risk and responsibility of this business. But I really do try to put everybody into the equation
mm,
and see it from their perspective. And I also think like seeing the strengths in my people and like trying to really reflect that back to them and also give them more things that are in that lane has been huge, like, especially with working with my manager, like, not trying to force her to get something, she's not super, detail and tech savvy, and so I'm like, "I'm just gonna hire someone else to do those tasks that I can easily train," and I've already started that process. So, and that taking that off her plate, then she's, like, freed up to do all of the things that are in her wheelhouse and in
mm,
her lane that she does easily and abundantly, so it's, like, kinda putting the right people in the right seats and reflecting back to them the things that I see they're so good at,
mm.
um, has has really shown me, like, "Oh, that makes leadership easier for everybody," you know?
Yes,
And
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, so next week I am doing a masterclass on leadership and on developing these skills via my 3-step leadership system, the embodied leadership system. And I'm so excited about it. It'll be next Tuesday. It's 90 minutes. I'll put some links and everything for those of you who are watching in the comments so you can join if you like. Heather, what would you say to any small business owner who is like, do I need to work on my leadership or should I focus on sales and marketing? Like what would you say to them about this possibility of stepping into more focused leadership work?
I think, I mean, any investment you can put in becoming a better leader is going to have huge returns because it not only affects how you run your business, but it affects your team, and your team is your strength. For me, it was like being able to lead my team in a way that I feel like now I can rely on them and they're in this with me. Like that's just huge because I felt so alone, so overburdened, so burned out before. And that just is not a good place to operate from. So having a really supportive team is great. And also I will say, like, doing this leadership work, like, was deep inner work too, because it brings up a lot of your stuff. And so I think all of that stuff that came up as I figured out how to be a better leader, 100% has paid dividends just in like helping me figure out all of those things that not only make me a better leader, but, like help me with my decisiveness and all of that stuff.
Mm.
So, yeah, so I just see that as kind of like having huge ripple effects, um,
Yeah, and I think
that are
like
gonna like snowball into your sales and into your marketing, you know?
yeah, I mean, because then you have the team to actually like you have your big idea and you're like, team, how do we implement this? And like they are oftentimes better at you at a certain point. If you do some things right, your team becomes better at you than doing a lot of other things. And you're like, I don't actually know how to do this anymore. Can someone else take the wheel?
Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah,
Well, the
totally.
more I master things and sort of train other people to do them, that frees me up to master the next level of things. And then it's really fun to be able to mentor the folks who are, where you were a couple of years ago and help them sort of through that process. But yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I made the decision that I was going to be a leader and then went about figuring out how to do it with your help and support. It's invaluable to have someone who's a few steps ahead of you who can say, "Oh yeah, I was there. I had that awkward conversation with that person. Here's some support about, now you're kind of helping me transition my folks into employees or contractors." So like
Mhm.
that's a whole other thing that I think is in that leadership lane, and it's just so invaluable to have that, to have some support.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I so appreciate you. And for those of you watching, yes, DM me for the link to World's Best Boss, the 90-minute masterclass. It is currently $111, but the price doubles in a couple days. So message me for the link. I'll send you that link. You can learn more about it and see if it's the right thing for you. All right, everybody, have a great night, and I will talk to you real soon. Thank you, Heather, and see you next time.
Bye.